So you want the lightweight portability that only a 14-inch gaming laptop can deliver. But which one should you get? In the ring, we've got Asus's Zephyrus G14, Razer's Blade 14, Acer's Predator Triton 14, and HP's Omen Transcend 14 fighting it out for best 14-inch gaming laptop. All of these 14-inch gaming laptops have areas where they shine and where they suck. So we'll see which of these 14-inch options is the best in these categories and award some points. Then at the end, we'll add up all the points and find out which laptop is the best. But first, we have a small problem. 3 of my laptops have RTX 5070 laptop graphics, while my Zephyrus G14 has the higher tier 5070 Ti. On the one hand, this isn't a perfectly fair comparison, as I wasn't able to get the G14 with the 5070. But on the other hand, the G14 is the only laptop that goes above the 5070. So if you want more than 8 gigs of VRAM, the G14 is kind of your only choice. And given the goal here is to find the best 14-inch gaming laptop, I think that's a legitimate reason to include the G14 with 5070 Ti. Especially if you consider the fact that when the 5070 Ti G14 goes on sale, it ends up cheaper than all the others with 5070. And that's just outstanding value. And when it or any of these laptops do go on sale, you'll find them on our gaminglaptop.deals website with that link below. Alright, let's start out with gaming performance, as that's kind of the whole point of these gaming laptops. Here's how all 4 laptops perform in a selection of 3 different games at 1080p. Higher average FPS with higher 1% lows means smoother gameplay and fewer stutters. Out of the 5070 laptops, they're pretty much ordered by who can give more power to the GPU, as more power equals more performance. And that ordering doesn't change at 1440p either. Razer's Blade 14 has a full-powered 5070, which is quite impressive for a 14-inch machine. And honestly, if my G14 had the 5070 too, I think Razer's Blade would still win, as Asus's website lists the G14's 5070 as maxing out at 100 watts. So I guess you could say the Blade would have an edge. So if we're comparing all laptops with the same GPU, Razer's Blade gets the win, followed by the G14, then Triton. But if we're counting the fact that the G14 is the only 14-inch laptop that lets you go above the 5070 and get more than 8 gigs of VRAM, then yeah, the G14 is the winner. And honestly, it kinda sucks that most of these 14-inch laptops max out with 5070 laptop GPUs, because they're all limited to just 8 gigs of VRAM, as 8 gigs of VRAM paired with their 2880 by 1800 screens isn't gonna be a good combination in future games, for all the reasons covered in this video with Steve from Hardware Unboxed. Now, high frame rates are great and everything, as long as you don't have to spend too much to get them. Here's how much each laptop costs per 1 FPS of performance you get in games at full price. So lower results are better now. Without sales, interestingly, Asus's Zephyrus G14 is actually the lowest at $2,400 US. So lowest price combined with the best FPS gives it the clear win here in terms of best gaming value. The Blade and Triton are similar, while HP's Omen is the most expensive for the FPS you get. But things change when we factor in the best sale prices we've had on the gaminglaptop.deals website. The G14 still wins from a value perspective, but it's no longer the cheapest option. Razer's Blade and HP's Omen can cost less when on sale, but they don't deliver as much value in terms of gaming performance as they give you lower FPS. Acer's Triton is in last place as it only just launched in the US, and it hasn't yet had any good sales, but that will change, so check for updated prices with the links below the video. The whole point of these smaller 14-inch designs is to maximize portability, so size and weight is up next. With the chargers included, Acer's Triton weighed the least, with HP's Omen and Asus's G14 tied for second place. But honestly, the difference between the lightest and heaviest options is only minor. They're all significantly lighter compared to most biggest 16-inch laptops, and all very portable. Despite being the heaviest, Razer's Blade ends up the thinnest, followed by the Triton, then the Omen. But it's worth considering that my G14 with more powerful 5070 Ti is a little thicker compared to the 5070 version. If you were considering the 5070 or below G14, then it would be extremely close to the thinnest laptop of the bunch. But a smaller laptop means there's less room for upgrades inside. Long story short, the Omen 14 has a lower upgrade score because its Wi-Fi card is hidden underneath the cooler, so it's more annoying extra work to get to it. The other three laptops all have accessible Wi-Fi. Otherwise, the only part you can upgrade is the SSD in the single M.2 storage slot. The Omen is also the only one that had trouble fitting a double-sided SSD with chips on both sides. It was possible, but it was a tighter squeeze compared to the other laptops. It gets even worse for the Omen when looking at Wi-Fi speed. It's the only 14-inch laptop that comes with Wi-Fi 6E, while the others all have newer and faster Wi-Fi 7. But you can upgrade to 7 for an extra $10 when ordering with the link below, which is honestly worth it considering how annoying it is to do it yourself later. So to summarize upgrade options, it's basically a three-way tie between the G14, Triton 14, and Blade 14, while HP's Omen is just worse in all regards. Less space also means less room for cooling, so thermals are up next. Here's the hottest temperature we measured on the keyboard deck under sustained CPU plus GPU stress test. HP's Omen felt the coolest, but the Blade and Triton weren't that much warmer, at least compared to the G14, which was noticeably warmer. That said, the reason is because we're looking at the higher powered 5070 Ti version. I would expect the lower tier 5070 G14 to be a little cooler as it has a lower 100-watt GPU power limit, though it is also a bit thinner too. To be fair, the hottest spot doesn't necessarily mean the area you'll be touching while gaming. In fact, all of these laptops were relatively cool on the wrist rest and WASD keys, so there's nothing too major to worry about with any of them, as the areas you'll touch while gaming aren't that warm. Though I will note the Blade's thicker metal chassis seems to conduct heat better, and just generally feels a bit warmer to the touch, regardless of what my thermal camera might be saying. Despite having the warmest hotspot, the G14's fans don't get too loud, though the Blade was slightly quieter, but there's not much practical difference between the top three results. Meanwhile, Acer's Triton 14 in last place had a perceived fan noise 37% louder compared to the next loudest laptop. That's not great for the Triton. It runs the loudest, yet still has the second hottest keyboard hotspot, just to come 3 out of 4 in gaming performance. Internal temperatures on the CPU and GPU weren't too bad in most cases, with the only exception being HP's Omen 14, which had a significantly warmer CPU temperature, though it wasn't thermal throttling, so it's not really an issue in practice. More power equals more performance, but also more heat. The Omen gives the processor the most power out of all of these laptops, hence the hottest CPU. But the compromise is the Omen also gives the least amount of power to the GPU, and this explains why it has the lowest performance of the lot in games. I've got to give the overall thermal win to the Blade. It gives its GPU the most power, all while having the quietest fans and only second warmest keyboard. The Omen is next for not feeling hot or running loud, then the Zephyrus, which lost points for feeling the hottest, and then the Triton is last for having the loudest fans, which I think overwhelms the rest of its benefits. And a smaller laptop also means you're limited to a smaller 14-inch screen. All 4 of these laptops have 14-inch 2880 by 1800 120Hz OLED panels. As far as color gamut goes, honestly, they're all excellent and not really too different in practice. Colors look excellent on all of these screens. But if you want to split hairs, the Triton was the best, followed by the Omen, then the Blade. But the small differences are within the margin of error range. That is to say, I've seen the variants we're seeing here on the exact same laptops with the same screens. Screen brightness will also vary a bit based on the panel lottery, but out of what I've tested, the G14 and Omen 14 were basically tied for first place at just above 400 nits, though the Blade is close, with the Triton not far behind. It's also worth mentioning that the Triton is the only laptop with a touchscreen, if that's important to you. The G14 had the best options to help reduce OLED OLED burn-in, while the Omen and Blade didn't have any user-adjustable settings in software, though that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have any mitigations built in running behind the scenes, just that they're not as flexible. The Blade and Zephyrus had the fastest response times, which is how long it takes the screen's pixels to update when something changes. But honestly, at under a millisecond, all of these screens are insanely fast, and you're not going to be able to tell the difference. The screen is a factor in the total system latency, which is the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire shows up on screen in Counter-Strike 2. So we're looking at the full chain rather than just the screen in isolation. But again, there's not much practical difference between the fastest and slowest result, with just over a millisecond difference. The Omen is the only laptop without a muck switch, so you can't turn off Optimus to get an FPS boost in games. The Triton does have a muck switch, but there's no advanced Optimus, so you have to reboot to use it, which is less convenient. The Blade has both, though the muck switch is only accessible in BIOS, which doesn't really matter when you've got advanced Optimus, but at the end of the day, the G14 has the most flexibility here. There's a lot of factors to consider when it comes to the screen, given color gamut, response time, latency, and brightness are all much the same, or at least very close. Honestly, you could go for any of them and have a great experience, but I'm going to give the win to the G14 for its extras, including better OLED protection options in software, as well as muck switch, advanced Optimus, and G-Sync support. Plus, the anti-reflective coating on the G14 is better than the Blade. Although the screen will be what you stare at the most, it's the touchpad and keyboard that you're going to be interacting with. As for touchpads, it's of course personal preference, but I liked the G14 the most, followed by the Blade, then the Omen. I suppose I like how the Triton feels a bit more than the Omen to click, but the Triton's haptic touchpad has gotta go in last for me, because I've had a few issues with it where it unclicks when I'm dragging stuff around. Full details are in my full review of the Triton, but I will also note that the Triton is the only one that has a touchpad with stylus support, so that might be useful if you're a content creator. As for keyboards, I liked the feel of the Zephyrus the most, followed by the Blade, then the Triton. HP's Omen feels fine, it's just that without any spaces between the keys, occasionally if I hit the edge of one key, I might accidentally push the key next to it, and that just doesn't happen with the others. But the G14 was the most underwhelming when it comes to keyboard backlighting. It's only got a single zone of RGB backlighting, which is honestly pathetic for a premium gaming laptop, and it's dimmer than the rest too. Otherwise, the Triton and Blade both have bright, vibrant key lighting, but I thought the effects on the Blade looked a bit smoother and nicer. You probably want the rest of your laptop to look and feel good too, so build quality is up next. This one also comes down to personal preference to some degree, but after using all laptops, I thought Razer's Blade felt the most solid, which makes sense as it's milled from a solid block of metal. Asus's Zephyrus was second, but it is also the thickest laptop of the lot, and I thought the Triton had a bit less flex compared to the Omen. This isn't to say that the Omen is low quality or anything, just that it's not the best of the bunch. Smaller laptops, of course, prioritize portability, but you won't be using these much if the battery life sucks. HP's Omen lasted the longest in our YouTube video playback test, but it's extremely close with Acer's Triton only 5 minutes behind, with Asus's G14 only 10 minutes behind that. But if gaming on battery is more important to you, then the Triton gets the win, followed by Razer's Blade, then the Omen. I suspect the G14 is losing on gaming here, as it has a more powerful 5070 Ti. It might be a different story if that also had the 5070, but battery life hardly matters if your laptop drains all its power while it's asleep. The Omen lost the least amount of charge at just 9% over a 24-hour sleep, but it also has the smallest battery of the bunch, and the percentage is only relevant to the size of the laptop's battery, meaning this isn't a fair comparison, even if it is more practical. But the rankings don't actually change if we instead compare based on how much power is drained per hour, which is a fair comparison. So it's still a win for the Omen, followed closely by the G14. But what about raw CPU performance? Half of these laptops run AMD processors, processors, while the other half run Intel. The Zephyrus G14 wins from a multi-core perspective, with the Omen 14 and Blade 14 basically tied in that regard. The Trident 14 had the lowest multi-core score by a significant margin, as it's only an 8-core, 8-thread part, and half of those cores are lower-powered E-cores. But the Intel chips do better from a single-core perspective. The difference isn't that much, but winning's winning. That said, given the smaller difference in single-core, I'd prioritize multi-core performance as the gaps are bigger. The ordering doesn't change if we unplug the charger and run on battery power. All laptops lose some performance, but the G14 still offers the best multi-core performance, and there's now a bigger gap between the Omen and Blade. The G14 and Trident only lower a couple of points in single-core, while the Omen and Blade single-core scores have almost halved. So for a snappier general experience on battery, the Zephyrus or Trident are worth looking at. But how do the speakers sound? I'll shut up so you can have a listen. It's personal preference, but I thought the G14 sounded the best. It's a little clearer than the Omen, and I was surprised that I preferred how the Omen sounded compared to the Blade, considering the Blade has front-facing speakers, and the Trident just wasn't as clear as the rest. The ports are different too, and determine how many devices you can connect to the laptop. I think some ports are more important than others, so each port has been assigned a different score, showing how much it's worth on the left. All 4 laptops have an HDMI 2.1 port and 3.5mm audio combo jack, but they're all too thin to fit Ethernet. They all have 2 USB Type-A ports, and it's good to see that they're all faster Gen 2 as well. None of them use slower Gen 1. They all have 2 Type-C ports too, but the Blade wins here, as both of its Type-C ports support 40GB speeds with USB 4. The rest have at least 1 port with this faster speed, while the second Type-C port is limited to USB 3.2 Gen 2. Though it is worth mentioning both the Omen and Trident use a Type-C charger, so one of the Type-C ports gets taken up with the charger connected. The Omen is the only one without an SD card slot, but it's also the only one with some of its ports on the back, if that matters to you. All things considered, ports aren't too different, but the Blade scrapes the win for having faster Type-C ports, while the Omen falls behind for missing a micro SD slot. Each laptop has its own control panel software for managing it, and some are definitely better than others. This one comes down to personal preference, but out of these options, I think Asus's G14 is the best. The interface has gotten a bit busier in the last year or two, but I still found it the easiest to navigate with the most amount of customization. I think Asus Trident comes in second, as it's also got some nice options available, and it doesn't have the few random bugs that we always seem to find in Razer's Synapse software. HP's Omen is easily in last place here. There's just so much random garbage and ads in their software, and I find it annoying to use. Again, there's definitely some personal preference to this one, and software updates come out all the time and change things. But as of right now, this is how I rank the software experience. Alright, now let's add up all those points and separate the winners from the losers. Starting with last place and working our way up, we've got HP's Omen Transcend 14. The Omen had the best battery life in the video playback test, the least amount of battery drain while asleep, the lowest keyboard hotspot, it's one of the lighter options, its speakers are decent, and CPU performance is decent with the charger connected, but its lower GPU power limit results in the worst gaming performance. And ultimately, it's limited by its 140-watt Type-C charger. Its software is bloated and not as good as the others. It has the least amount of ports, the slowest Wi-Fi, it's the only one without a MUX switch, and I didn't think build quality was as nice as the others. I'd only consider the Omen when it's on sale, as it can be the cheapest option, and if your priority is on good battery life and good portability. I mean, the other laptops offer that too, just not quite at this price. Next up in third place, we've got Acer's Predator Triton 14. The Triton is the lightest of the group. It had the highest screen color gamut, though they're all much the same there. It's the only one with a touchscreen. It had the lowest latency between mouse click and screen action. It had the fastest Wi-Fi, and it had the lowest temperatures on the CPU and GPU. That's because the Triton had the loudest fans. It has the lowest screen brightness. Granted, the difference wasn't that big. The worst touchpad in my opinion, but I just don't like haptic, or at least this implementation of it. It had the lowest multi-core performance due to it having an 8-core 8-thread processor. Its speakers are bad, and there's no advanced Optimus. I'd consider the Triton if my priority was on minimizing weight at all costs. But you are paying a lot for that, as the Triton hasn't yet had any good sales, as it only just launched in the US. Though that should of course change over time. Again, refer to those links below for updates and sales. Moving up to second place, we've got Razer's Blade 14 with a score of 69. Nice. The Blade had the best build quality in my opinion, while also being the thinnest. It has the lowest fan noise, a good keyboard and touchpad, the best ports, the highest GPU power limit out of the 5070 options, and good gaming performance as a result, only beaten by the G14's higher tier 5070 Ti. But the Blade was the heaviest laptop tested. Its battery life was the lowest, though honestly, it's still an excellent result when compared to non-14-inch laptops, and the speakers weren't impressive compared to the Omen and Zephyrus. The Blade has only just recently started having some good sales, and I'd consider it if I wanted a solid metal laptop that feels the most premium of the lot. And that of course leaves first place to ASUS's Zephyrus G14, with a final score of 76 out of 100 points. The Zephyrus had the best gaming performance in this comparison, as it's the only laptop with a 5070 Ti. As mentioned, if it had the 5070, the Blade would probably beat it, but the fact that the G14 is the only 14-inch laptop that gives you the choice of getting more than 8 gigs of VRAM is a win in itself. Despite the higher tier GPU, the G14 still ends up best from a dollar per FPS value perspective, whether we're talking about full price or when these laptops are on sale. The G14 had the best touchpad and keyboard in my opinion, the best software experience, the best multi-core CPU performance with or without the charger connected, the best speakers, the best mux switch setup, solid build quality, good port options, and lower fan noise. But it's not perfect, no laptop is. It's all about finding a compromise and which one has the least amount of issues for you personally. The G14 was the thickest of the lot, though again, that's due to the 5070 Ti. The 5070 version is on the thinner side. Battery life was the lowest with a game running, Wi-Fi was only average, and the Keyboard Hotspot was the warmest out of all 4 laptops. Though as discussed, the wrist rest and WASD area where you'd rest while gaming weren't bad. I'd consider ASUS's Zephyrus G14 if I wanted a solid all-round 14-inch gaming laptop with excellent gaming performance and strong value. It's crazy that the G14 is actually the cheapest without any sales running, despite its higher tier 5070 Ti graphics. And even with sales, it still ends up best from a value perspective. Not to mention the 12 gigs of VRAM, which will give it better longevity in future games. In other words, the higher tier 5070 Ti graphics with 12 gigs of VRAM will give the G14 the best longevity in future games. I don't want to throw around the term future-proof, but out of these options, it kind of is. And when it is on sale, you'll find it on our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that daily to share the best sales so you can save money. Of course, there's way more to know about the G14, so get all the details in my full review next.